Death in the freezer. Death in the freezer. How exciting to have a new baby in the family. A brother or sister to play with, someone to tell secrets to, someone to be a friend for all your life. But Ellen Shaw is not happy when her brother Al is born, because her parents think that a son is more important than a daughter. Ellen has food to eat, of course, and new clothes and dolls to play with, but nobody is interested in her. So Ellen begins to hate her baby brother. And when she's an adult, she goes on hating him. She has 3 young kids, no husband, and very little money. But Al is rich. He's a famous rock star now, with lots of expensive cars, a beautiful big house, and a life of parties and travel. Ellen cleans his house, cooks for his parties, even steals drugs for him from the hospital where she works. And Al gives her nothing. So Ellen begins to make secret plans for her brother. But Al has some very strange friends, who also have plans for him. Chapter 1. Baby Al. I killed a dead man. That's why I'm in prison. The dead man was my brother, Al. He was born 6 years after me, and I always hated him, even when he was a baby. Before he was born, my parents loved me. My father carried me on his back and took me swimming. My mother bought me lots of dolls, and we played with them together. I have seen the photos. My parents took a lot of photos of me in my first 6 years. I still have the photos in a book. But then Al was born. I have a photo of him too, as a baby in the hospital here in Los Angeles. My mother is holding him and looking at him with a big smile on her face. My father has his arm around my mother and he's smiling at baby Al too. Al is holding his daddy's finger. And me? Where am I in this picture? I am standing by myself beside the bed watching them. There is a strange smile on my face. I think I'm happy, but I'm not sure, and no one is looking at me. It was always like that after Al was born. He was a boy, and that was important to my parents, and very important to my dad. Most of the photos in the book are of Al. Al eating baby food, Al learning to walk, Al on my dad's back, Al playing football, Al swimming, Al running, Al having a big party with his friends. 100 photos of Al and 5 or 10 of me. Of course, my parents played with me sometimes, took me swimming, bought me clothes, but they weren't interested in me. Before Al was born, they spent a lot of time with me. After he was born, they didn't. Often, I played hospitals with my dolls. I played that the dolls were sick, and I was a nurse. When the dolls had bad stomachs, I gave them medicine to take. Sometimes I pulled their arms and legs off and put tomatoes on them to look like blood. And sometimes I gave them drugs. That was the best of all. My mother gave me an old syringe, and I put water in it and pushed it into the dolls. Soon the dolls were full of holes. That's a good game for a little girl, my mother said, but she didn't understand, because in my game all the dolls were boys, like Al, and they never got better. They were sick for a very long time and then they died. I put them in a hole in the ground, in the garden. When I was 10, my mother died. My father was unhappy and began to drink a lot. Sometimes he came home with strange women, but he didn't marry any of them. I think the women didn't like him because he drank so much. When he wasn't drunk, he played with Al, so I had more time alone. I was a good girl at school, and I was beautiful too, so I had a lot of boyfriends. My father hated them. You stay away from those boys, Ellen, he shouted. It's not right. I don't want them in my house. Why not, Dad? I asked. You bring your women here, don't you? Why can't I bring my boyfriends? Shut up, girl, he shouted. He was very angry. Sometimes he hit me, and once I had to go to hospital. What did Al do, you ask? Him? Nothing. He just watched and laughed and played football with Dad. Then I met John. He was 22 years old and big and strong like Arnold Schwarzenegger. All the girls thought he was wonderful. One day he asked me to go to a party with him. Me! I was very excited, so I went home and put on my best clothes and shortest skirt to look nice for him. Then I heard John's motorbike and went downstairs. Dad was at the door. Where are you going? He asked. Out, I smiled at him, with my new boyfriend. Oh no, you're not, he said. Not in that skirt. You're only 18, Ellen. I know what boys want. I don't care, I said. I pushed past him, but he pulled my arm. I screamed and he hit my face. Then John came. He was wonderful. He took Dad's arms, held them by his side, and pushed him slowly back into the house. Dad couldn't do anything. John sat him down in a chair, then walked out and put his arms round me, right there in front of the house. Then we rode away on his motorbike. Chapter 2. Wild Boys. I never went home again. That night I stayed in John's apartment, and 3 months later I knew that I was going to have his baby. But I lost that baby at 5 months, and soon I went back to finish my training as a nurse. 4 years later I had another baby, and this one was born all right. Now I'm 29, and I have 3 small kids. But I'm not really happy. John is a good looking man, a wonderful lover, but I'm not his only woman. I know he has 2 other girlfriends, and both of them have babies. Maybe there are more. Sometimes I don't see him for weeks, and then he comes back and smiles and tries to be nice to me, but I still get angry. He doesn't have a real job, and we have very little money. I work as a nurse in a hospital, but I don't get much for that, and I have to pay half of it to someone to look after my kids while I'm at work. Dad died 4 years ago. Al told me about it. Dad had a heart attack, he said. He was really angry about John, so he began running to get stronger, but he didn't stop drinking. Then one day he drank half a bottle of whiskey, went for a run, came home, and fell down dead on the floor. Al laughed. How strange, I thought. Dad loved Al, but when he died, Al laughed. Perhaps men are just animals, really, not people like us. When Dad was dead, I saw Al more often. I didn't like him much, but he was my only family. Sometimes we went swimming together with the kids, or out for a pizza. John didn't like me to talk to other men, but Al was okay because he was my brother. When Al was 18, he began a rock band, Wild Boys. He sang and played guitar. At first, they played in a small restaurants, and then they made a record. Lots of people bought it. The band began to play in front of thousands of people. They made 3 more records and traveled all over the world. It was wonderful. By the time he was 20, my little brother Al was famous and rich. He was very, very rich. He bought a yellow Rolls Royce, a Jaguar, a Porsche, and a house in the best part of Los Angeles with 15 bedrooms, a tennis court, a swimming pool, and a view over the sea. And he gave me our parents' house. That was nice, but it wasn't very nice. I mean, our parents' house is very old. It has 3 small bedrooms, a small garden, and is in a noisy, dirty street. It's better than my old apartment, but still. I went to see Al more often. He gave me a key to get in and out of his house, and I cooked for him when he had big parties there. I enjoyed the parties. John came too. There were famous people, wonderful food and music, lots of drink and drugs. Drugs, yes. Well, the drugs were a bad thing. Al got much too interested in drugs. A lot of his friends took drugs, and my John did too. And when they were on drugs, they often didn't know what day it was. They did crazy things. I remember one party when they went for a midnight swim down at the beach. The boys took all of John's clothes away while he was still in the sea and drove away with them. So John had to walk back through the streets in the middle of the night, all wet from the sea, while we laughed at him from the car. He was so angry. I thought that was really funny, but John didn't talk to me for a week. But Al and his friends took more and more drugs, and the music began to get worse. Sometimes Al was still in bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and when he did get up, he looked very sick. He was thin, his face was white, and he didn't want to eat anything. He asked me to help him. "You're a nurse, Ellen," he said. "I feel sick. Give me some medicine or something. Help me." "You don't need medicine," I said. "You need a lot of good food, swimming, and no more drugs." "Who do you think you are, Ellen?" he said. "My mother or something?" "No, but I am your sister and a nurse," I said. "Listen to me. I'm going to get you some medicine to help you stop the drugs, and I'm going to cook you a good meal every day. But you must stop the drugs. Try it, Al. It works. I know it does." He did try it, and it helped. After 2 or 3 months, Al was stronger and happier, and he began to play good music again. He was pleased. He trusted me. Sometimes in the evenings he took me and my kids to the beach. We had a meal and drank and went swimming together and had a good time. Those few months with my brother were a good time in my life. Now, at last, I thought, my brother likes me. He's happy and healthy because of me. Maybe he can help me, give me money, buy me a new car and a nice house, take me to Europe with him. But of course, I was wrong. No one ever gives me anything. Chapter 3. The Tour. "I'm going away on tour," Al said one day, "all around the USA and Europe to play music for 4 months." I looked at him and thought, he's going to ask me to come too. I can see the world, bring my kids. "Wonderful," I said. "We can. When I'm away, I want you to clean the house for me," Al said. Of course you can't live here, but I want you to come every day to clean. And there's another thing, Ellen. Yes, what? So I'm not going, I'm just his cleaner, I thought. I really hated him then. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I said nothing. You know I get very tired on these tours, and I need drugs to help me play good music. But I don't want to take dangerous drugs, Ellen. I need clean, safe drugs. I want you to get some drugs from the hospital for me. You're a nurse. It's easy for you. Just take them secretly. No one will know. That's a crime, Al, I said. People go to prison for that. Is that what you want me to do? Steal drugs for you and go to prison, maybe? Why not? He laughed. You're my sister, Ellen, and don't forget, I gave you my parents' house, didn't I? What more do you want? That's what he said to me. My parents' house, not our parents' house. Really, half of it always belonged to me, but Dad gave it all to Al because he was so angry about me and John. But Al didn't think of that. He thought about everything belonged to him. Just like when he and I were kids, when he played football with Dad and I played with my dolls. I remember my dolls then, and the syringe with water in it, and I smiled. All right, Al, I'll get you something. You're right, you are my brother. And I looked around at the beautiful house and the swimming pool and the view of the sea, and I thought, you're not married, Al, and there's only you and me in our family, so when you die, all this is going to belong to me. Al was right. It was easy to steal drugs from the hospital. No one saw me. I also stole syringes, which were all clean and new. Al was very pleased with them. Thanks, Ellen, he said. Now I'm going to play lots of good music. I'll be okay now. Chapter 4. The Futures. He went away for 4 months, and I cleaned his beautiful big house every day, but he didn't phone me once. And when he came back, he wasn't okay. He looked thin and white and sick. I tried to talk to him, but he didn't listen. I was just a cook and cleaning woman. He had a lot of new friends now, and some of these friends were very strange. I first met the Futures one night in November. There was a party at Al's house, and when I went there after work, I saw a big black car outside. It looked like a boring car, and when I went inside, I thought the people looked boring too, but that was only on the outside. Inside, they were as dangerous as wild animals. A businessman in a dark suit sat opposite Al, with a young woman on the arm of a chair beside him. The man was about 40 years old, with grey hair. The woman was much younger, about 24 maybe. She had long black hair and was wearing a blue dress. At first I thought she was the man's daughter, but then Al said, Hi, Ellen. Meet my new friends, Dan Future and his wife Linda. We met in New Mexico. There were about 10 other people there, talking and listening to music. We had 1 or 2 drinks, and Al and Linda went for a swim in the pool. I sat and watched the beautiful evening sun over the sea, and Dan Future sat beside me. We watched Al's thin body when he got slowly out of the pool, and Dan said, Life's so very short, don't you think? What do you mean? I asked. He smiled. He had beautiful white teeth. My father died last year. He was 65. That's not much, is it? 65 years of life? Well, maybe not, I said. But think how many times the sun has gone down in the evenings. 10 billion times, maybe? 100 billion? 100 billion evenings as beautiful as this, but my father sat and watched maybe only a few hundred of them. We only live a short time, like birds, you know. Yes, I see, I said. I looked at him, surprised. Businessmen don't usually say things like that, but then businessmen don't usually come to Al's parties. Dan Future's hair was beautifully cut. He had an expensive watch, nice clothes. He looked strong and healthy. Why did he want to talk about death? The only sick person in this house was Al. What did Dan Future know about that? He smiled again. We don't have to die, you know. Soon, people are going to live 150 years, maybe more. You just need to have money, that's all. I told your brother about it in New Mexico, and he was very interested. Maybe you are too. Oh no, I thought, the man's crazy. Do you belong to one of these new churches? I asked. No, I'm a scientist. I can tell you all about it, if you like. But he didn't, because at that minute Al came up to me and said, We need some more drinks and food. How about some food, Ellen? There are some hamburgers in the freezer. And so I went to get them. Al had money, and I didn't. And I was a woman. So I got the drinks and cooked, and about 10 o'clock I went home. And I didn't learn any more about Dan Future and his crazy ideas. Not then. but I learned a lot about them 2 weeks later.